Welcome to rSlash Idontworkherelady, where a Karen breaks into some guy's house and demands to speak to their manager. Not sure if this fits, but wasn't sure where else it would. I was standing in line to get into the supermarket today, and the person just before me was a surly older gentleman who was not wearing a mask or facial covering, and appropriately wearing a biker jacket with a big patch that read, F helmet laws. The store has someone at the door, usually a teenager or an elderly greeter whose job it is to ensure everyone entering the store has a face covering per their nationwide corporate mandate and under our state law. As the man arrived at the greeter, who couldn't have been a day under 65, the greeter said, "Excuse me, you need a face covering to enter." He said to the old woman in this macho, authoritative voice, "No, I don't. It's okay," and tried to walk into the store. The old woman goes, "Actually, sir, you do. It's not just policy anymore, it's the law." And he starts spouting off about how it's unconstitutional law and how the greeter isn't in a position to enforce laws. A minute or two pass and people further back who can't see what's happening at the front of the line are getting restless. They begin to try and see what's happening. The guy is saying, "Look, you're holding the line. If the masks really do work, then everyone who's wearing one is safe, right? And if they don't, then why do you care?" And she was getting kind of desperate at this point and said, "Well, sir, because I could lose my job if I let you in there." This is where I come in. I hadn't spoken up before because this was a big guy, and I'm just a student who's no good in a confrontation. I figured adding myself to the mix would only make the situation worse. So I took out my phone and started recording. I figured he would be less likely to do something violent to the greeter or escalate further if he knew he was on camera. Here's what I'd forgotten. I was wearing a shirt from a 5K that was sponsored by our local news. So it had Channel X Eyewitness News in huge print across the front. The guy's wife goes, "Good Lord, Howie, the news is filming. What if my work sees this? Jesus." So he turns to me and starts telling me he doesn't consent to be on TV. And starts making a speech how we're all treading on the Constitution, not respecting people's rights to bodily autonomy or privacy. I'm trying to tell him I'm not with the news and he's like, "I don't care if you're on the clock or not. I don't want to be on camera and I won't be forced to wear anything I don't want to wear. When did we forget that this is America?" Now, this is where it got crazy. The line stretched all the way around the building, and people towards the end were realizing it hadn't moved in a while and were coming up to investigate. An even bigger, more macho guy comes lumbering up and asks what the problem is. He sees this guy going off at a terrified elderly greeter, me shaking holding my phone, and is like, Sir, what's the problem right now? People are trying to shop." The maskless guy tells him, and I quote, "Get away from me. This here isn't your business." The more macho guy proceeds to whip out a badge and identify himself as an off-duty police officer, and that the law is, in fact, his business. First, he tries to have the cop arrest me for putting him on the news without his consent, but I just played dumb at that point. My adrenaline was through the roof, and if I'd been able to retain presence of mind, I would have left by that point and shopped somewhere else. The biker guy is now saying to the cop, "This isn't what you went into the academy dreaming about, man, is it? You're not stopping bad guys, you're forcing regular people to go against their beliefs." The cop said, "No one is forcing you to do anything, sir. You're free to make your own choices. You can put on a mask or you can go home. Decide what you'd like to do, because there is a line here." The biker guy keeps saying he isn't doing anything illegal and he has a right to shop in a public business. And the cop just shakes his head and starts quoting the official mask law the guy is breaking at him. But the biker guy is just talking over him at that point, and the cop realizes he isn't getting anywhere. So the cop says, "Look, I don't want to escalate this, but you're not giving me a choice in this situation. If you won't leave of your own volition, you're trespassing." And he starts explaining what will happen. The biker guy is ready to stand firm and say he knows he's in the right, but his wife is smarter and says, "Jesus, Howie, are you insane? The man's a police officer," and very ashamedly apologize as she forces him to leave with various threats. It took nearly 15 minutes to get into the store, caused a major backlog of shoppers, and he made a poor elderly woman fear for her safety. Just wear the mask or get your groceries delivered. I mean, seriously, people. Of all the hills to die on. OP, I'll make you the same offer I make everyone when I find out they have a recording of an entitled person. please email me because I will gladly buy that video from you. I want to see it and my fans want to see it. The world deserves to see it. And to everyone else, subscribe to my channel because I've actually published exclusive video footage that fans have sent to me. Our next Reddit post is from Vatican Cameos. I'm a 28-year-old female and my 27-year-old wife and I were at Wally World a couple years ago for a new garden hose reel. We were talking over the different options, not 3 inches from each other, when this lady actually pushes me out of the way to speak to my wife. My wife was wearing jeans and a hoodie, so there's no way she looked like an employee. "Excuse me, where's the dog shampoo?" My wife, who was just trying to be helpful, said, "I would look in the pet section." The entitled woman rolls her eyes. "I already did. I didn't see the brand I want." Oh, that sucks. Assuming the conversation was over, my wife turns back to the shelf. I'd gotten irritated when the woman pushed me aside, but had assumed she was just a rude person trying to get the items on the shelf. I moved a step around her, but she tapped my wife rather forcefully on the shoulder. Now, I know I have an anger issue, so unless my wife signals for help, I try to let her handle things or else run the risk of causing a scene. So I watched quietly, waiting. "Excuse me, you have to help me." "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't know where your item is. Maybe you should ask someone if they carry that brand here." Isn't it your job to know these things?" She turns to me and gestures at my wife. "What an idiot." I was comprehending the trouble before my wife was, so I said, "She doesn't work here." The entitled shopper looked at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. For a moment, she kept glancing between me and my wife before recognition settled in. "Oh, the way you were helping your friend, I just assumed you worked here." My wife smiled nervously, but I was still kinda pissy that the woman had pushed me away. My wife and I are trying to decide what to buy. I squeeze my body between her and my wife. "Excuse us." The woman continued to stare at us. I didn't look at her directly, but I could feel the hole she was burning into the side of my skull start to smoke. Before she walked away, we heard her say, "Well, that's just not right." My wife and I sighed and went back to comparing hose reels. Some people. Our next Reddit post is from French Fry. Before I start this story, I have to tell you about my husband. I'm French, and we met while he was on vacation in Europe. One thing led to another, and now I live in Ohio with him. He's a hardworking gentleman, an Army veteran of 2 conflicts, and even though he has a very serious and almost hostile demeanor, think resting jerk face, but angrier and on a guy. He's a big teddy bear, quick to make a joke or pull a prank and easy to laugh. He's also very protective of me. Since I'm not here to gush on him, I'll go on. We were out getting groceries last week, and as we were checking out, I was bagging up all of our stuff because the store now requires you to bag your own goods if you bring your own bags. No big deal. He pays, and I stay to help a very elderly lady behind him bag her groceries and put them in her cart. He'd helped her unload them, and we offered to help her put them in her car. She shuffles away from the register and I move to follow. As I turn away, I hear behind me, "Where the hell do you think you're going?" I turn to see a very angry looking woman glaring at me. I told her politely that I didn't work at the store and had just helped the elderly lady to be polite and that I was now leaving with my husband to go home. I'd never met an American Karen before, so I thought this would be the end of it. I turn to walk away and feel a vice grip on my arm. "Don't be lazy, just do your job and help me bag my groceries." I didn't even have time to respond. She had barely finished speaking when my husband wrenched her hand off of me and was yelling in her face. This was the first time in the 10 years we've been together that I saw the old soldier come out. His nose might have been 3 inches from hers, and his voice was loud and frightening. "Who the F do you think you are? How dare you put your hands on my wife? She told you she doesn't work here. Are you too effing stupid to understand simple English? Go pay for your garbage, bag your own groceries, and don't you dare utter another effing sound." The silence after that was intense. A store full of people could hear a pin drop. The look on her face wasn't even angry, it was pure terror. She shuffled back to her aisle and waited for the cashier. My husband went to the old lady and said, "I'm so sorry you had to hear all that, ma'am. I apologize if my language was offensive. I hope you'll still allow us to help you load your groceries into your car." It was surreal, like he just flipped on a switch and flipped it back off. Also, we got chased down by the store manager who suggested we could be banned because of the yelling and bad language. The husband just shrugged and said they'd better ban the Karen too for assaulting me, and that there are other grocery stores in town. We just go to this one because it's close. Didn't get banned. Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. So basically, I live in a small apartment above a bar that has a really good kitchen. Over time, I've become friends with the owners, who are really great people. This past weekend, there was lots of noise coming from the bar at about midnight, so I came to complain. They said they couldn't do much about the noise, it was a crowd watching a game, but if I came in at some point this week, they'd give me a dinner for free as an apology. That brings us to yesterday. I'd gotten off work late and didn't feel like cooking, so I decided to cash in on that aforementioned free dinner. As I'm eating, things start to get really loud and busy again, so I asked for my meal to be put in a doggy bag. The owner said I could just take the plate upstairs as long as I return it later that night or the next day. As I'm leaving, still shoveling fries into my mouth, I notice a woman trying to flag me down from her table. I assumed she was looking at a server behind me, so I took no notice and walked outside carrying my dinner. I put down the plate to open my door, and while I'm rooting through my pocket, I feel a sharp tap on my shoulder.
Don't ignore me like that. I ordered almost 40 minutes ago and I've not got my food. This is unacceptable.
Okay?
What do you mean, okay? What are you going to do about it? I want my meal discounted for this.
Oh, I don't work there. You'll need to speak to someone who does about doing that. I turn and open the door.
Don't lie to me.
She looks past me up the stairs.
I know you guys are just hiding up there instead of working. I'd like to speak to the owner.
Lady, this is my apartment. Please leave me alone. She pushes past me and charges up the stairs, screaming as she goes.
You guys better get back to work. There are people waiting to be served down here.
What the F? At this point, she's reached the top of the stairs and is now looking around my room, realizing the only person she was yelling to was my fish, who I'm sure wasn't in the mood to serve her anything after that. See, get the F out of my apartment.
Well, it doesn't change the fact that I've been waiting ages for my food, and that's unacceptable. Clearly you know the owner, so I think you should still talk to them for me.
What the F? Get out! I'm out of patience at this point and begin to walk towards her and try to usher her back down the stairs.
Don't touch me! If you don't care, I'll find someone who does.
She ran back down the stairs and slammed the door on the way out. However, not before kicking a pair of my shoes into the street, which I then had to go out and collect. I saw the owner today when I gave the plate back, and he said the lady had come back down and caused a scene in the bar. Eventually, the bouncer removed her. I couldn't believe she still tried to act like she was right, even after she realized she was standing in my apartment, not a restaurant. But whatever. How entitled do you have to be to break into someone's home and then say,
"Don't touch me"?
Lady, you're lucky I'm not tackling you and pinning you to the ground until the police show up. Our next Reddit post is from Poeti. My neighbors are Airbnb-ing out their home while they're in Europe. It's been a pretty problem-free experience, until today. Yesterday I was studying at home. At midday, I saw a car pull up in front of my neighbor's house. A couple exited and immediately went up to the front door to knock. As time passed and no one answered, they started exploring the property, presumably searching for someone. Unfortunately for them, no one was home. This is where things get interesting. The man, growing increasingly agitated, decided the sensible thing to do in this situation was to climb over a fence into my neighbor's backyard. As I watched, perplexed by his decision-making, I saw him wandering around, knocking on, and then trying to forcibly open the back door. It was a rather amusing sight. That is, until he gave up and decided the next thing he'd like to do was climb the fence from the neighbor's yard into mine. Oh no. At the moment, our landlord is building an extension to the house, and immediately I'm worried that this man might accidentally injure himself on the construction site. I rush out to speak with him. What I'm met with is an out-of-breath, red-faced man and woman whose face looked like a smacked behind, rapidly descending down my driveway towards me. Knowing a little about my neighbor's arrangement, I initially try to help. Hi, are you guests at the neighbor's Airbnb? Check-in isn't until 3 p.m. I don't think you'll find anyone there at the moment. The lady, now upon me, was unhappy after hearing this.
You need to let us into the house.
I'm taken aback. I'm sorry, I'm not your Airbnb host. I just live next door. You should get in touch with my neighbor as they'll be able to help. Ignoring the perfectly rational advice I've given them, the lady starts turning a deep shade of red, her partner silently glaring at me, his face beginning to contort with anger.
They told us we could check in at 10 a.m.
You really should contact your host. As I said, I'm just the neighbor. This only seemed to anger the couple more, and the lady immediately started shouting at me.
You need to let us in or I'm calling the police.
Wow. At this point, I'm getting pretty annoyed. I tried to explain the situation to her, but only got so far as I can't let you in before she cut me off.
Let us in or give us our money back.
Now, in her increasing anger, coherent sentences started to break down, which in hindsight was pretty funny to watch. It became a series of,
You told us 10 a.m.
and
Give me back my money.
And more threats to call the police, who would apparently get them a refund. I've never seen someone get so belligerently mad in such a short amount of time. At this stage, I'm done with being polite. Lady, I'm not your Airbnb host. You climbed over the fence into my backyard, which is why I'm out here speaking with you. You both need to leave and contact your host. I know that their check-in isn't until 3 p.m. Being forceful at least interrupted her tirade, but she was still mad. As I watched her, I could see her slowly starting to process the situation. Despite this, she wouldn't apologize or admit she was wrong. Instead, what she blurted out next was,
Can we at least store our luggage with you then?
What? She repeats herself, this time much louder, apparently still under the delusion that yelling is the way to get what she wants. Nope, you're not leaving anything with me. After a further brief exchange, they left, and I immediately let my neighbors know what happened. Now, here's the justice boner to the story. My neighbors were annoyed. Really annoyed. They tried to contact their guests, but they wouldn't answer their phone. Eventually, they let Airbnb know what happened, and Airbnb tried to reach out to them too. Again, the guests didn't answer their phones. During our exchange, the man let me know his name. Let's call him Bob the Twat. As it turns out, the booking was made under a completely different name. Both my neighbors and Airbnb tried to verify who was staying, but Bob wasn't responding to their calls or messages. Eventually, Airbnb decided to cancel Bob's booking. I wrote a note letting Bob know he needed to check his Airbnb messages and that his booking had been canceled due to the situation this morning. At 3 p.m., the car returned, this time filled with 4 more people. Apparently, Bob the Twat was trying to sneak in a few extra unpaid guests. I watched the quiet resignation on their faces as they read the note. It felt good. As an aside, my neighbor managed to rebook the dates with a lovely Chilean couple, and Airbnb honored the payout for the insane couple's canceled booking. My neighbors insisted on giving me a portion of the payout for my trouble, but honestly, knowing that these horrible people were inconvenienced was enough. Down in the comments, Dull Useless Dinosaur sums up this post perfectly. They want to call the cops, as they trespass on your property in an attempt to break into your neighbor's house. Yeah, go ahead and call the cops, buddy. I don't mind. That was rSlash, and if you like this content, then hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.